good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Paint Desk Ramblings. So, tonight's episode is the Warriors of the Dark Gods, and I'm joined by, back on the show, from the executive board, it's Grimbold Blackhammer. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm happy and safe and COVID-free, so I can't complain.
Yeah, that's all we can ask for in these days, I suppose. So,
Yep.
the dynamic duo is back, but we're also joined by a third member, a well-known figure from the forums, especially in the user blogs section, where he has his own very large blog dedicated to Warriors of the Dark Gods, and is also very well known for posting other people's blogs and keeping everybody's spirits up with the constant encouragement. It's Wasteland Warrior.
Hi guys, how's it going? Just coming on the chat tonight at the request of Mads. Talk through some of the Warriors stuff. My first time doing this, so we'll see how we do.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll do fine. So we have the terrific trio now, I guess, of Grim, Mad, and Waste. Something like that, at least. So the adventure for tonight is, as I said, Warriors of the Dark Gods, and we will be talking about the background, the art a little bit, the rules, and the miniatures. Hopefully, creating something that can be of use to new players who are curious about the faction, and also more experienced players who just want to listen in on things like that. So a bit of everything, hopefully. But before we get into that, we, as always, have the hobby spotlight. So starting with you, Waste, what are you working on tonight?
I'm presently basing some skinks. After that, Saurian warriors that are like 3/4 of the way done. I've got a veteran cowboy that's pretty much got a pile of Saurian stuff in front of me to try and work through.
Yeah.
I'm trying to blast out a whole 4,500 points before the COVID finishes.
Yeah. So it's a pretty new army for you, is that right?
I've had the army for a long time. I use it at home when I'm playing with friends, but it's like all unpainted, old broken stuff that's half painted. I'd never dream of taking it out to play someone in public with, but
okay.
Yeah, it's been used a bit, but I thought it's about time it actually saw some love.
Yeah, that sounds great. So you're using the Games Workshop models, 8th edition, or something like that at least?
A mix of like fifth edition Games Workshop from when I was a kid, and
so those plastic monopose skinks, things like that.
We've got the decent skinks. I don't know if you can see in the camera. The decent skinks, these ones that are on the 8th ed, and then I've got the old Stegodon, the old metal Stegodon for the torso.
Yeah, that's nice.
I've got some of the old metal pterodons, which look really great, but they're terrible in game. They're just wobbling around, falling all over the place. They might stay in the cabin. I've got some plastic ones too. I'll probably paint them up instead because they're a bit more practical. But... Yeah. Oh, Salamanders too. They're pretty old. Yeah, bit of a mix. All Games Workshop at the minute, but as we expand, we'll see.
Yeah, there are quite a lot of miniatures out there on the market. So, what about you?
Loads coming out of the book.
Yeah, sorry. What about you, Grim?
Well, the new Infernal Dwarf legendary army book is in the process of being constructed.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be getting released hopefully soon once we get past a few hurdles. But I've got some new units to paint up and old units that I'm still in the process of putting together. I think everybody has armies that they just want to get on the table, and they paint to a basic minimum and do basic basing on just so they can play. But my Infernal Dwarves are the army that I put my heart and my passion into. So I paint really, really slowly, being careful to pick my colors and how I model things and what conversions I use and even what models I use. So right now I am putting 100 5th edition GW goblin heads on some plague monk bodies with some alternate arms to create really large units of hobgoblins.
Nice.
Or a vassal infantry or something like that, I guess it will be called.
Vassal infantry, because yes, they can now be from multiple races. Infernal dwarves hate everyone equally, and they are willing to enslave everyone without any prejudices.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds neat.
Yep.
Yeah, I totally hear you on that about having a few armies that are mostly just to get on the table and things like that, and
Yep.
a few passion projects, keep them separate. So for myself, I'm also working on my passion project, I guess you can say, my Empire of Sonshal at the moment. So things have been going slow painting wise lately. I've been assembling my swordsmen, my heavy infantry, for quite a while, but they are all almost done now. But tonight I'm picking up an old Flagellant to put some paint on, basically. I have 5 of them ready to go to make a little warband in skirmish games. But been taking my time with them, experimenting, doing some different things. So that's fun.
Cool.
Is that contrast paints you're using?
No, this is war colors shade. I'm just messing about with it, see if I can create something interesting. Let's see. I usually start off quite messy and then sharpen it up, basically, when experimenting. So he might turn out a bit too turquoise, but we'll see. So that's me. And yeah, we'll move on to news. I can see if I can sharpen him up a bit. There we go. So first piece of news is some releases from Avatars of War. So they put out a new Barbarian Chieftain model, like this. I think it looks pretty cool.
Lovely on a 25mm base, I'm sure.
Yeah,
I was going to say, I don't know if that's going to rank
amazing.
up, but it looks great.
It can be a challenge for sure, yeah. A bit more easy to rank up, I think, is their new Centaur Chieftain as well.
That's pretty cool. You
Yeah.
could stick him on the war dice, actually, the huge barbarian. That'd be pretty decent. He'd fill that out, wouldn't he?
Yeah, that's for sure. That's good. That's a good
Yeah.
call. But I really like this Centaur dude. Looks quite badass in my opinion.
From the tiny postage stamp, I can see.
Yeah.
There's a lot of detail on that model. That would be tough to paint.
Yeah, for sure. They are really upping their game in the detail aspect, I think.
Yeah, but they've got great artists. I've ordered a few times from them, and I've always gotten great service. So
I don't think
I might have to buy that one just to add to my collection.
I don't think I've ordered from them directly, but I've painted a few of their models, and they are great, really. Nothing to complain about. So
I never have. No avatars for me. I've
Okay.
seen some of the stuff though in person. It looks nice.
No, they are a great company, really. So we'll move on to another miniature release, and this hadn't been loaded apparently, but here we go. So this is from Fireforge. They released Lilith the Ranger. So I think it's their first Sylvan Elf model. So of hopefully more to come, because I think she looks pretty neat. What do you guys think?
Looks almost like a D&D kind of a model.
Yeah, I can see that. Sure.
Yeah, it's a nice model though.
Yep, really nice
I'm
guy.
fine.
And Fireforge also have really good quality overall. Seen some of
They've really come a long way. Them first nights that they did were kind of like not so great, weren't they?
Yeah.
They were cheap as couldn't complain of that, but the new stuff that they've been bringing out. Excellent.
Yeah, it's really high quality plastic miniatures. I don't know. I guess this one is resin, but yeah, still really cool. Yeah, fine resin. So that's all the miniature news I have, but I think Grim had one to share as well. He sent me this link.
This is a Kickstarter that Forgotten Realms. I think it's no Forgotten something. Anyway, the
Lost Kingdom.
Lost Kingdoms. That's what it is. I invested in their first Kickstarter, and they have great quality, and the models are superb. This Kickstarter is still going on, but it's actually not models. Interestingly, it's files for 3D printing.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's everywhere.
So with the money that you would save in actually buying the models, you could probably buy yourself a 3D printer. But they have the artist or artists. I don't know if it's one guy in his garage or 20 guys in their dorm room or what it is, but they have amazing digital sculpts.
Yeah, they really
and because the quality that they put into designing each piece is really, really strong and really, really characterful. I bought the files for both the I guess their lizard manish army and their infernal dwarf army. But because I've got the files, I mean, I can print off as many of these as I want and have really cool terrain on my tables.
Yeah, that's awesome. I've seen some other options for for getting hands on some STL files for printing, and it seems like a quite good way to get some neat terrain. So
yeah.
Are you allowed to resell them when you've bought the files?
They have an option to buy a commercial license, in which case you can. But my personal philosophy is I would much rather support a local designer like this, or a small designer. I guess he's not local since he's in Italy. So I wouldn't give these files away. I would say, hey, go back to Kickstarter and go get them. But he also has links to various third-party 3D printing companies that you can go to that he's used and tested. So once you have the files, if you don't have your own printer, you can still send the files off to this company and say, I want 5 copies of this and 200 of these little guys, and they'll ship it back to you at a reasonable price.
Fantastic. That's
yeah.
Think about, because I see all these excellent, like the Lost Kingdom stuff. I see 3D printer. I don't have a 3D printer, but if there are places you can go and just buy the files, take them to them, and they'll sort them out for you, then yeah. Some of the story and stuff's really, really nice.
Yeah.
Seems kind of huge, but I suppose they can scale it down if they're going to 3D print it, can't they? You
can actually scale it up or down depending on what your needs are, which is another one of the benefits of 3D printing.
Yeah,
that might be one of the better ways to get the story and stuff they did, because it was initially, I've seen some of the models that people bought on the forum, and they're enormous. They look fantastic. You've got to like raise them 6 inches above the unit to get on the base. If you get the files and reduce them like 70%, then fantastic.
Yeah. It sounds like a really, really good option.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about this one, though.
Yeah, it's
for
really...
building giant city. Is it the city building option that's exciting you the most, or the models?
Actually, there's 2. If you scroll down to the bottom of that page, there's some kind of a. It almost looks like the old Hell Cannon from GW. It's some kind of a giant war machine, and it looks pretty badass. That's what I really, really want.
That one that's ridiculously ornate. I saw it, I thought, wow, how much detail.
Yeah. I mean, painting it is going to be horrible, but...
Yeah, that's what I said. Fantastic model. It might take me the rest of my life to finish painting that thing.
There seems to be an infinite amount of stuff in this in this Kickstarter. But
yeah, half the files are for infernal dwarves and half are for some kind of a lizard man army.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's really, really cool. So I hadn't noticed this this Kickstarter, so thank you very much for sharing it.
Yeah.
But I guess we'll move on to
one more model news, if you like.
Yeah, sure.
You know your Empire Giant. You said that it wasn't available anymore.
Yeah.
I think it's coming back out. I think I saw a thing on Facebook earlier with someone advertising with a picture of that giant that wasn't painted as nicely as yours, but saying that it was going to be available for release again soon. So
Okay. Yeah, that's great
something to
news.
keep an eye out for.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear. Okay, looking forward to that. Might get myself a second one in that case.
With a Hellblaster.
Yeah, I have a plan for a Hellblaster giant, or a Volgun giant actually.
Awesome.
But I guess that will segue into some other news, which is the Giants supplement from the Ninth Age. This is a huge topic that I will like to do a full show on someday, but some quick thoughts on it, basically.
Okay.
So, what do you think?
Well, what do I think? I'm okay with it. I mean, it's a little bit sad for me because I mainly play Warriors, and we've already got a giant, and we didn't get anything. Everybody else got a giant. Well, I tried playing the Lizardmen, so I could maybe find some kind of gigantic saurian-looking dude, stick the pet on it, and I think that seems pretty cool. I really like the idea of the salamander giant.
Yeah.
Yeah, it gives modeling opportunities. Lets people like you've previously just painted one for the love of painting stuff actually use it as the thing that it's supposed to be, and yeah, no complaints from me. Excellent stuff.
Yeah, I personally think it's one of the best releases by the Ninth Age ever. So I'm really happy with it.
Really, I'm surprised. I didn't think giants would be that big of a draw.
Yeah, I think people really quite like them. I mean, overall, the reception on the forum seems to have been really positive.
It was, and I worked on the initial part of it, but I was just too busy, so I couldn't. I had to bow out of the design of it. But it was, originally just designed as our April Fool's prank of the year,
Yeah.
and people really latched onto it.
You knew they were going to, though, right?
No,
You've
no,
never taken it back. Too many people have arms forever.
People never latched onto our Fishman army, which is crazy because that's a fun army.
I think part of the draw for me of the Giants is, I mean, I'm not particularly that bothered about Giants. I probably won't get any more Giants myself, but everybody knows what a Giant does, and it only tacks on one rule. Like if you're going up against the Fishman Army book or the Makars or the Asklanders, they've got a whole slew of new rules, and you've never played against them.
True.
It's like it's pretty daunting. But what's this guy? He's a giant. All right, cool. What's he do? He's got a Hellblaster. Like, yeah, I know what those things do. That's fine.
Yeah, it's really easy to pick up that way. And it's also people wanting to invest in a whole new army. They may be happy about getting the Makar book, but everybody can just add a giant to their army now, which is something that's much more easy to do. So the barrier of entry to enjoy the release is much lower.
Well, I will pass along your positive comments. I'm glad you guys are enjoying it.
Yeah.
I'll take anything they bring out. Fantastic.
Yeah, I would love to see more of this kind of stuff, sort of the mercenary approach and the unlikely alliances that are possible in the universe. So I love it.
Good.
So moving on, some podcasts and stuff. There's been a new one called Paired Weapons Podcast. I think they have one episode out so far, maybe two.
I think they're number 3 today.
Okay, then I'm behind. But they seem really good. I listened to the first one, and yeah, just want to give them a little shout out.
Yeah, I know Matt and Kev. They're nice guys.
Yeah. So the scene of UK podcasts is really quite saturated, but that's all good during these times to have even more stuff to listen to while painting.
Yeah, out of the 50 people that play, 25 of them have got podcasts, and 25 at home listening to painting.
Yeah, and they started cross-pollinating too when appear on each other's podcast, so it's really as confusing now. I have no idea who's running what anymore. So that's good to see. Also, in particular, it seems that it's been a good couple of weeks for those who are a bit unsure about basing, because Warhammer Weekly put out a episode about basing, and also Slanrat Daily, and I think one of the other UK podcasts, but I can't remember which, also did.
Yeah, it was Craig and Jordan, I think, doing that one.
Yeah. So
yeah.
It's a lot of good stuff to listen to and get some ideas for basing, basically.
You mean don't just do them like the same for every one of your armies? Is that what we should do?
Yeah, I've fallen prey to that as well. My Orcs and Goblins and my VC are on identical bases, and it's I really regret that in hindsight, but it was simple.
I don't regret it at all. I can stand them all together on the same bases, and it looks like they're fighting each other in your cabin.
Yeah, that's the neat part, I guess.
I think the days of goblin green bases with green flock on top are long gone.
Sure are. And there was much to rejoice.
Yes.
Okay. So I think that's all we have for news, unless you have something you want to add.
No, I don't think so. Nothing outside of my own bubble.
Then we'll move on to the main segment, I guess. So, Warriors of the Dark Gods. We'll start with the background and arts. So the idea is that we'll each bring up a piece of art or story that we like, and we'll chat a little bit about it, and then go 2 or 3 laps until we're all pretty satisfied. And hopefully it will cover the background fairly generally, basically. So, you want to start, Grim?
Sure. I've actually got 2, if that's okay.
Yeah, start with one, and then we'll loop back around to the second.
Okay, well, that's easy enough. If you are looking at the Legendary Army book, even though the rules are not completely up to date, on page 19, there's a picture of, I guess, almost the Ascension tree, and the stories are really interesting, and the Paths of Ascension description is really interesting, but they've got this fun kind of dumbed down graphic of how you go from lowly peasant plebe up to becoming an exalted herald, and the missteps that can happen along the way. It's fun, but it explains it brilliantly. I don't know who drew it, but they did a great job.
Yeah, I can only agree with that. I think it was I can't remember his name. Yeah, whatever.
Mikhail Shublin.
Okay, yep, that's it.
Yep.
So I think this one is actually a bit particular, because this art piece is presented much like the world hymn as something that actually exists in the world. So it's a fresco that's hidden in a temple in Sagarika, basically. So it's something that people in the world has put together to try and summarize the pact and all that.
The guy falling down into the Forsaken One pit.
Yeah.
Oh, you guys do know your lore. I'm impressed.
Nah, I'm a big fan. So this was one of my picks too, but I had more prepared, so no worry. But yeah, it's an amazing piece, and the background text that goes with it on the page next to it is also really neat.
Yeah.
It really does a good job of explaining this the paths of ascension and the perils of them, basically.
Yes, the paths and the peril are almost equal.
Yeah.
Because the riches match the punishments, I guess.
Yeah, you have the you gain power and the chance to become immortal, but you can also be turned into just a horrible beast with no mind at all.
But you get to double dip and have a go again if you don't fail at the first hurdle, don't you? So,
Yep, that's true.
That's true.
Once the dark gods forsake you, you can always have a go with Father Chaos and gain his love instead.
That's what I always tell people I'm trying to recruit them.
Excellent. So, great first pick. We'll move over to Waste.
Okay, yeah. Well, I just reread through half of the book today. Previous to that, I thought that the Doom Lord text was one of my favourite parts. And reading it again, it still is. I just love the scene that it sets in the forest. Really atmospheric. And the Doom Lord just sitting there minding its own business. Introduces the Gortak. It's almost getting towards the bit, a kind of semi-omniscient narrator where it's telling you what's happening and stuff, but that they try and usually avoid. But yeah, it sets a nice scene for me. Sets up the character for the Doom Lord being a bit more than like the mindless beast or whatever.
Yeah.
And it really helps that the illustration next to it's super cool as well. So yeah, one of my favorites.
Yeah, I can only agree. It's a good one. It's about the Doom Lord who just randomly encounters a Gortark and kills it, basically. And it's
start camping out.
Yeah.
like a normal person, and the dude comes through the forest terrified, and there's a Doom Lord just camping out here, and then there's a Gortak. Slightly contrived, but it entertained me.
Yeah, I mean, talk about bad luck for that poor guy who just stumbled upon a Doom Lord and then also a Gortark. But for sure, a cool show for him.
Have either of you ever met Scottish Knight?
Yeah,
the head of the background team?
Yeah.
Not me.
I have not met him personally. He's on the executive board with me. But in everyone's world, they should have a list of people that they would like to meet in real life. And I would love to meet that guy. He doesn't write everything, but he approves everything. Everything goes through his personal filter. And he is so good at what goes into the background and writing the background. If you ever get a chance to sit down, buy that guy a beer and just listen to some of the things that he says, because he's just brilliant.
He's a nice lad, but he'll turn your beer down, sadly.
Really?
Yeah, I don't think he drinks. I don't think I've ever seen him drinking.
Actually, yeah, I think that's correct too. Okay, buy him a donut.
He'll eat that, yeah.
Yeah.
No, he's a top lad. Everyone is, though, to be fair. So.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
I was quite surprised by that when I started going to tournaments. I thought it'd like be at least 25% people who are a bit, you know. But everybody's just so sound. Fantastic.
Yeah, that's my experience too, for sure. But no, I haven't met him, but I would like to, and I'm hoping that someday I'll have him on as a guest as well. But,
I'm sure he'd love it.
He doesn't know that yet, but someday I'll work up the courage to ask him. But for my own first pick, I'm gonna go with the text for Warrior Knights.
Yes.
So this one it's written by a pilgrim and storyteller who was encountered the Inquisition at a bar in Sonstal, and was almost caught by them because he had been traveling in and out of Sagwoods, and then was saved by another fella who basically just shoot them away. But then he retells the story that this other fella tells him of how he was captured by the Dread Elves and made to serve as a slave on a ship for a few months, and then they encountered some knights of Nukuja, and the knights just killed all of the elves and then just ignored the slaves. They didn't care at all about them. And instead I really love the gruesome aspect of this. They carved out the eyes of the Dread Elves and arranged them into a little pyramid, and then he sat next to those kneeling and like praying for several days straight, just motionless. So I really like this text because it captures this eerie feelings of the Warriors of Sloth, and also it had so much information about all these other things like the Inquisition, the Dread Elves, and Sagwods as well, so the Vampire Covenants. So really great text in my opinion.
The best thing about that text for me is how it describes that they only moved less than 10 inches and then charged from less than 10 inches away so they could keep the favour. It says how they moved up slowly and they charged distance that was no further than the length of this room.
Yeah, that's great. I hadn't thought about that.
But that describes the mechanics of the favour happening in the text.
Yeah,
it was like a nice Easter egg for me.
Yeah, that's good. That's awesome. It actually explains why the rules or how they use the rules. Yeah, that's great.
I like each story, that one in particular, because they do their best to, even though it's in the Warriors of the Dark Gods book, they always try and tie in how other races react, see things, or interact.
Yeah.
That's a great story for that.
I think overall this in-world narrative that they have is great for doing that. You always get this dual aspect of you learn something about what the observer is observing, and you learn something about the faction that the observer is part of, the narrator. So I very much like that aspect.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's a bit hard work, but maybe more rewarding in the end. It's like daunting in the beginning where you read an excerpt from someone and it doesn't tell you far too much. At the beginning, I felt a little bit pushed away, but as I made myself read more and more, you feel like you're getting more out of it rather than just having been told X, Y, Z. It builds up. It maybe builds up a better picture, but it's harder to get your teeth into to start with.
I think that's true. It can be a bit tricky to get into, and it's the barrier of entry basically.
But behind the barrier is some good stuff. So.
Yeah, it's a difficult choice to make of the background team, I think, but I'm hoping they stick with it because it makes it a bit unique, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I'm good with it. I've changed my mind. I've changed my mind from the beginning where it didn't grab me as much as Omniscient narrator tells you all about your faction in 2.5 paragraphs, and you've got something to go on. But yeah, now I've forced myself to read through more of it. It does reward you more.
Yeah.
So stick with it, people out there.
Good advice. So you have a second one, Grim?
I do, but I'm going to ask to take a break. This is the middle of the day for me. My boss is calling me, so we're going to have to do a split, and I need to disappear for 5 minutes.
Okay, sure. We'll keep on chatting.
Okay.
See ya.
I'll be back.
See you in 5, man.
So we can move on to your second pick then instead.
Cool. I'll go again. I'm going to be greedy and take up the entirety of the introduction to the marks, where they're at Tovarus, and it's the first time you meet in Ilarion, and the warrior warband turns up after they've closed up the shrine, and they all sit outside, take it in their turns to come in, introduces the flavour for all the different marks.
Yeah.
The sloth part of it at the end, I don't know. Maybe the atmosphere of the sloth just gets to me. Because the Sloth Knight one was good too, and the Sloth Warriors that were left at the end, just indomitable, just standing there waiting. They weren't bothered.
Yeah,
taking the time.
I definitely
It's kind
agree.
of a foreboding feeling to it.
So I haven't read this one in a while, but wasn't it that each day one of the warbands walked up to the castle and interacted with Ilarion, and then on the seventh
Yeah,
day, on the seventh day, the Sloth Warriors they just stood there. And they did nothing for a good while, and then a few days later they bothered to show up.
For another 3 days, they just stood there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And just at the moment going to ride out, they turned up. But yeah, it was cool. It was a cool story, and it was cool that it acknowledged the people who were leaving and taking part. And I liked the bit where the Wrath guys who came along brought back some of the deserters who had gone to leave with the previous group of warriors. And they said, like, we don't let people live who have betrayed us and stuff.
Yeah.
We've brought these prize for you if you kill them and join us and stuff. It's pretty cool.
I really liked that aspect of Vanadra, of righting wrongs basically. So it's not just about blind rage, but having a reason for that rage as well.
Rather than just kill for killing, the god of kills. A little bit deeper.
But yeah, it's a really good introduction to the 7 dark gods. I thought it felt a bit forced that it just happened to be one of each, a warband of each god there just parading themselves for Ilarion. But
I suppose, yeah. I mean, you got to force the issue occasionally, otherwise you're going to have to read through thousands and thousands of pages of novels.
Yeah.
Of new work before it gets to the point, I guess.
Yeah. So it was a bit convenient for the writers, I suppose, but it's still a good, really good introduction to the whole thing. So yeah, that's a good pick.
The illustrations with it too. The
Yeah.
illustration of the warrior for each thing, giving you the different aesthetics from your typical Games Workshop warrior, the avatars of war, exactly the same Games Workshop Chaos Warrior, and stuff like that. Some of the pictures have got some real theme to them outside of the regular trope.
Yeah, and they're all made by the same artist as well, so it really sets the scene in a way.
Yeah, agree.
I think it's Lucas Svedberg, a fellow Swede, who made those.
He's got some skills, has some really good drawings.
For sure. So that's neat. Okay, so I'll move on to my second pick.
Okay.
And it's the Chariot chapter, which is both about the chosen chariots and the warrior chariots. So what I really like about this chapter, we talked a bit about the unreliable narrator approach, and this chapter really makes that shine, in my opinion.
It does. I
because it's let's see here, it's the Erika Leitzke is the author, Leitzke, and she's written a book basically on the words of the dark gods. And in this chapter, the extract that we see, she takes 2 different in-world sources about the same battle and compares the 2 basically, and offers some comment on it and things like that. So you get to see a single battle between Words of the Dark Gods and the ancient Napdan people, so basically the Undying Dynasties before they were undead. And you get to see it from both sides.
Yeah, the difference of the glorious retreat and the cowardly fleeing on the ships.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So really like that one. As an example of how to really use this way of writing to one's advantage.
And a little bit of like a hat tip to the way that they're doing it as well. For
Yeah.
like an extra bit of in joke. The more you read it, the more you feel that there are in jokes to be had. Some of the guys like Giznut that you see on the forum, who seems to have managed to absorb all of the lore. And like got a knowing wink for everything. Like, just you wait until you've found out these cookies. I'm like, oh, man. Maybe I should read all this stuff, but I've only got so many hours in the day, and I've got lots of lizard men to paint. So.
Yeah, I'm hoping to do quite a lot of content about lore on the channel, so you can keep listening to that. I have one already about the 7 dark gods. I did that sort of an introduction to this show actually, so that we had the basics covered beforehand. Yeah, was that you? I heard Grim?
Yep, I'm back. One of the comments that we commonly hear is that we're just not releasing the lore quickly enough.
Yep.
And unfortunately, it's true. We probably released between 5 and 10% of everything that's written in the archives. So there's plenty more to come. But we're hoping to leave enough space that everyone out there can write their own piece of the story or participate however it is they want to participate. So stay tuned, much more to come.
Good to know.
Yeah.
Good to know that it's all there and just waiting to go rather than this is the amount that's come out because nothing else has been written. A lot being held back in the tank. It's good.
Yeah, I guess they're very careful to build up the world first and then write these in-world snippets that we get to see, and want to build up it all beforehand so that it's consistent and so.
Yeah, sure.
Well, I would not say that everything is written. There's still I would say we've probably written only 10% of what we want to write, but of what we've written already, we've just released the tiniest fraction. There's still so many more pieces. I haven't seen the full book layout for the Infernal Dwarves that's about to get released, and I'll use air quotes when I say about. But I'm hoping that there's a lot more lore in there that people can latch onto and really sink their teeth into. I do know that, like the Warriors of the Dark Gods book, it's going to involve other races as well. But yeah, it'll be nice to see yet another perspective from the world.
For sure, I'm looking forward to it.
I think everyone will be extremely entertained about the wastelands, the trying to breach the veil for unlimited amounts of power, and how things kind of might have gone a little bit wrong after that.
Yeah,
who is really to blame for that?
Oh, that's interesting, because that's a really big part of the world, I guess, the wasteland and the creation of it.
Yeah,
and it's connecting the warriors, the demons, and the infernal dwarves, and everything.
Yeah, that was one of the defining moments of Ninth Age. So it'll be interesting to get more information on that out in the public and see how people react and like it.
Wasn't it in the 7th Age or something like that, though?
No, it was a little further back than that, I think. But it's there have been machinations leading up to it.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so your second pick, Grim.
Well, it's a tie for the second. The first is the cover art for, and I don't want to pick two pieces of art, but the cover art for the Warriors of the Dark Gods book itself. I don't know who drew that one either. I I'm sorry, I haven't paid attention to who drew or wrote which specific pieces.
I think the
But-
cover was Nice Pants. What's his real name? The form name is Nice Pants.
I think so too, but I didn't want to give credit to the wrong person. He nailed the iconic imagery of the Warriors of the Dark Gods, so much so that we had a miniature company, one of our supporting companies, approach us to say, can we make a miniature of her?
I would love
And
to see that.
we're flattered. Oh, I would too. But the second thing that it did is it's a female. Women are just as powerful as men. They're just as imbued as men. They have to make the same choices. And I see so few models that are of female champions of the dark gods.
Yeah.
But I love that direction that the artist went with that, and I think he just nailed that piece.
Yeah, I can only agree. It's a really beautiful piece. Yeah, the use of colors throughout with the orange as the spot color is also really brilliant. So it's great
Yeah.
great on all levels.
Class illustration.
But if I had to pick something written, because it's really just one large story, Circling the Abyss was thoroughly entertaining for me. I think it was Scottish Knight who wrote that himself. But the trip of a lowly initiate through the different levels of hell, almost like Dante's Inferno, going from domain to domain, interacting with the different denizens there, and just getting the tiniest flavor of what each place is like, and how there's competition among the different dark gods followers. There's also a lot of mutual respect, because the power levels are they're matched, but they're not matched, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I can, the chapter about the deceiver, where the betrayer and the deceiver meet.
Yes, they just stand off and stare at each other for long moments until they finally acknowledge each other.
and then just move past each other and like nothing happened. And Nazario asks about what had just happened. Why you both serve the same master, Kulima, but he asks why aren't you like getting along? Why aren't you best pals? And he explains it so neatly. It really sells to me.
Yeah, it was a long story. I don't know if a lot of people went through it cover to cover, but I think I read twice in one night just because I enjoyed it so much, and there was so much detail and richness to dive into.
Yeah,
I did read it, but I have a terrible affliction where I completely forget every detail of everything I've read after a few weeks. It's terrible. It's real.
It's called getting old.
I enjoyed it when I read it, and that's just.
But yeah, great pick. It's about both the warriors, of course, and also the demons a lot. But if you want some solid information about the dark gods, it's the best place to go, I think.
It is, and not to mention the artwork that you run through on each page is also pretty good.
Yep.
I think for a first attempt at that kind of a standalone product, I think they did more than a pretty good job. They did a great job.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
It was a nice bonus too, because you didn't even know it was going to happen, and then it's just there.
Yeah.
Have a story to read. Great, cool. No one even said it's going to occur, and you get give us something for nothing. Fantastic.
Yeah, I love it when it just things out of the blue like that. The giant supplement was the same really.
Yeah, surprise! I was just going to go on and check the blogs, and here's another download that you didn't know about.
Well, the giant supplement was different because that was supposed to be an April Fool's surprise for everyone. But things like the the supplemental armies or circling the abyss, those actually aren't kept as a big secret or anything. It's just there's so many balls in the air and so little time, and then we've all got our real life jobs on the side that sometimes we just forget that other people don't know out in the public exactly what's going on, but there's just not enough time to write all this stuff out so people know exactly. So I apologize if some of this comes out and nobody's told ahead of time.
No, I like the surprise. It's great.
I think it's good also to not, because I guess that since it's all a passion project, sometimes these things just don't pan out. People lose motivation and then things don't happen. So not announcing too much is probably good, because then people will just get disappointed if it unfortunately just dies out. So
under promise and over deliver.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've all each done 2 now. Do you have a third one, Waste? Or
I haven't got a third story that I was particularly hooked on. I would say I completely forget everything after I read it. I read
Yeah.
through half it again today, but just looking through it again, the quality of the illustrations, the quality of the stories. To say that nobody was paid a penny to do any of it, it's fantastic. The layout, just like the bordering on the pages, it just looks pro. Looks cool.
I got a last pick, if you don't mind.
Yeah, man.
Would love it.
So I think it's the last story of the book, The Red Blossoms of Ethar. So it's kind of a standalone story. It's not really connected to anything. It's about a girl or a woman when she's writing it. It's a journal entry about someone writing about a memory from their childhood, about how the father of the house went insane gradually, and then started worshipping Vanadra. And then one night she wakes up and finds that the father has murdered his son, the author's brother, and summoned a demon of wrath using the sacrifice. And then makes a pact with this demon, this Scourge of Vanadra, and becomes really powerful and kills a bunch of people. And then the demon goes on a rampage and kills all the rest of the people, including the author's mother. So everything she had is basically destroyed. And I mean, when I first read this, when the Wars of the Dark Gods book was released, it didn't capture me that much. It's a neat story, and it gives some insight to how the pact is made and how the power is achieved. But the really cool thing is the name of the author, because it's Leonora, the main author from the Demon Legion's book. So they kept a little tie between the 2 books, basically. So when the Demon Legion's book came out and I noticed that, I was really psyched to see that. So that's my last pick.
No, that's cool. The linking bit. I remember the story because as you said, didn't catch me too much. Murders his son, gains some power, demon kills some people. But yeah, it's a little hidden hat tip for the next book coming along, wasn't there? Excellent.
Yeah, I really quite hope that they would do more of that. I don't think there's anything in the Demon Legions that's planted for harvest in the Infernal Dwarf book. But I think it could be a really cool idea to do things like that, to always to introduce the narrator of the next book in the current book. Would be
Yeah.
That would be neat. They do reuse a lot of narrators in different texts here and there, which is always cool because it builds the character up. But
like Samuel Pepys, who was in the Warrior Knights one, he did quite a lot of it.
Yeah, he's had a few others. I can't remember which, but he's been used before, definitely. So yeah, that's something I really like when they reuse their narrators. So, are we ready to move on to the rules instead?
Yeah, my phone is probably going to die quite shortly. If it dies and I just go onto my tablet and go back into the Hangout, will it just start working again, or will I have screwed it up?
No, it will just start work. It will won't disturb anything really.
Cool. Well, just let you know that's probably going to happen in about 5 minutes. So carry on as you were.
Yes. So we'll move on to the rules. So here my my thought for an approach was that we'll each pick one thing that we think is really good, strong from the book, one thing that is really bad, and then one thing that a gem, the good, the bad, and the gem. So the gem can be interpreted in any way you want. Something that you really like the design of, something that you think is fun, something you think is underappreciated, things like that.
Okay.
So, do you want to start us off here, Waste, with your good pick?
It'd be wrong of me to say anything other than Feldrax, I think. I could pick so many things, but I just love Feldrax. In the past, I always wanted them to be good in Warhammer.
Yeah. So to clarify, you're talking about the unit of Feldrax here.
Sorry, yes. I like the concept of a centaur lizard style monster a lot for many years. And the Ninth Age has just brought the unit to life. It's got good rules that are fluffy, like the hatred against the flying, the resistance to the fire. They're so tough, so tanky in game. Being able to flee with them without having to pay for the lust mark and stuff.
Yeah.
People like bemoan that they don't like them because you can't get the discipline reroll. But when the Warriors book first came out, everyone was Leadership 8, and the BSB was such a bad choice. I was just playing Leadership 8 with no BSB anyway. So the Discipline 9 now, fantastic. Let's have some more of that. Yeah, I love them. Nearly all my lists have got at least 6 in. I can't leave them alone. I've just bought some models from Mias to make a third unit of 6, so I can cover a full 8.
A third unit, damn. Yeah, no, it's a really cool unit.
Ready for the Infernal book to become really popular when it comes out, because they absolutely crushed the old Infernal Dwarves.
Yeah, Unburnt is really gonna mess those Infernal Dwarves up. That's for sure.
Yeah, but yeah, they've got to be my pick for a strong unit.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. They are very, very tough. Resilience 5 and 4 health points. And
like pretty the magic phase. Whatever magic law you've taken, they care so much less than nearly anything else does. Fantastic.
Okay, yeah. And then the Unburnt rule and the hatred against flying makes them so strong against like some specific targets, which is neat, really. So good pick.
Yeah, strength with flavor.
It's like they're automatically designed to kill my incarnates and my infernal dwarf army. It's cruel.
Yeah, that's true. I think, though, if I don't remember incorrectly, but in the battle report in the scroll a while ago, there was some spoilers about the infernal dwarfs. And I don't think the incarnates will have fly anymore. So it's getting a little bit better, I think.
Right.
Yes, they are still on fire.
Yeah,
all right.
that's for sure.
All good.
Okay, your pick, Grim.
My pick was actually very, very easy. I don't know if a lot of people use these, but a unit of 10 flares with shields, light lances, and flaying whips drive people batty. My Warriors of the Dark Gods army is the only army I own where I will always drop to go first. Anytime I can, I always drop to go first. And I mean, the unit has movement 10 and Vanguard. So turn one, they're in my opponent's backfield. And because they just have to run past something to deliver their flaying whips hits, that's 10 strength 4 hits. That's amazing. That's a piece of artillery that's gone, or that's a fast cav unit that's dead and now causing a panic fest.
Vanguard 6, though, so you can't really get that far behind. They'll just deploy 2 inches back, I guess.
I guess, yeah. But
then that's the way too.
Vanguard.
If you
Yeah.
force your opponent to make a choice based on what you include in an army, that's always good.
They're too hard to get rid of, to dedicate something to get rid of them. And
I'll play against high elves far too much. Highborn elves far too much.
Highborn elves.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for taking them. You can remove those. Thanks for the 350 points.
Yeah.
I guess they are a bit fragile against some light shooting, basically.
Well, they've got a 4-up save.
True.
That's nothing to sneeze at. And
yeah.
With light lances, I'll throw those into a flank or a rear if I need to, because the whole unit is still pretty cheap at 300 and change.
Yeah.
So
I'll have to give it a go.
Yeah, they're a solid unit. I think I've lost them once in all my games, but yeah, they've always earned their points back and then some.
All right, okay.
Even on games where I've been totally destroyed, a 20 ode, they've still earned their points back. They might be the only thing left on the table, but they're there.
I love it.
The fluff for them in the is it the Makar book, I think, is they're the ones who ride around and they herd the Karkadans.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So they herd the Karkadans so they can be ridden or slaughtered for food or whatever it is they need. But yeah, they're a bunch of crazy people to even try that.
Or just
I think
herded into battle, as I think they are in the Makar book.
Or just herded into battle. Yep.
No, okay, that's cool. So
they're a very solid choice for me.
Yeah. My pick for good unit is the Exalted Herald. I'm not sure how much it's used these days. I don't think it's that popular, but I really hate facing it, and I think that the manifestation rules it has to give it special abilities in each game is it's quite unique, and it's really strong to be able to tail your model against the the foe you're coming up against. So I should say with a disclaimer, should have probably have started with that. The guests I chose do play Wars of the Dark Gods. I don't, so I'm the noob in this context. But yeah, I really think the Exalted Herald is a strong option. It's a nightmare to deal with for my armies most of the time, and it's really annoying. Spellcaster, good in combat, not amazing, but it's a threat for sure.
As someone who fields one in all of my armies, mostly because I like the model I painted up for it, for the best reason, of course.
That's the best reason.
I think a lot of people field it as using the sorcery options because Veil Walker is very powerful, but I actually got pretty bored of that pretty quickly. I field it as tall, stubborn with a halberd, and then he gets the spell that I'm blanking on it, but he steals a point of weapon skill from an opponent.
Rot within.
Rot within, and that pushes his offense to 10, but his defense to 9. And so almost everything is hitting him on 5s.
Yeah, that's nice.
Cast it twice on the gut star, and you're getting hit on 6s. That's good.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'll throw him into just about anything. I mean, he's solid, reliable, and he can cast all of his spells while he's in combat.
Yeah,
I really like him. He's a good solid choice. He's a good all rounder.
Yeah, I'm not going to disagree. I like the Herald.
How do you field it?
Then I wasn't completely wrong.
Blasty generally. I like to do the Sorcerer Immortal because pretty much every list I have to squeeze 2 lots of 2d6 in because sometimes it just does so much work.
Yep.
You can't not. But generally, I like to use him because I like the Feldrax. It's the only thing that can give him like some leadership, reliability, giving them the Guiding Light, 9 on the minimized rolls. It's pretty sweet, and he can hide behind the Feldrax because he's the same size and not be seen from like shooters, organ guns, and stuff like that, and blast them with the spells that don't need to see. I like hiding behind the beefy units and just using him to blast stuff off, and then once everything that can shoot him is dead, maybe go get involved.
Yeah, that's nice. Okay, so that's the good picks. Let's move on to the bad, if there are any. So we'll circle around to Waste again. You have a bad pick?
Bad pick for power-wise, or bad pick for just what I don't like?
I think mostly power-wise, but you can go with what you don't like as well.
Okay, power-wise, I'm a bit saddened by the Behemoth. I bought a model, loved the model, painted the model, played it for quite a while. But it just doesn't deliver anything for me beyond being able to fit another monster in if you want to have as many monsters as possible. The model itself seems quite underwhelming for the cost. It gets hit so easily. Bad weapon skills, so it doesn't. Unless you're against infantry, it doesn't output so much. Nearly everything when I'm looking at it, I think how many Feldrax does that equate to? It's too many Feldrax. It can't weigh up against the too many Feldrax for me.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. It seems very expensive what it does, but maybe its main use, as you say, is in if you want to go all in on Monster Mash.
Yeah, it's the only way you can fit some of the different configurations. I was running him with the Ancestor, Doomlord on the Behemoth, and 2 Feldrak Elders. It was really rock paper scissors, but to fit all of it, you had to have, because the Doomlord's Behemoth's only 220 points, so it doesn't take too much out of your monster cap. That's the only good use I could find for him. To just throw him in a list that's not anywhere near the monster cap, just take a different monster that's cheaper and it's nearly as good for me, anyway.
I wish I could disagree with you.
Yeah, I think that's a fair analysis. Unfortunately,
it's fun. It's fluffy with 8 wounds. I mean, it looks great on paper, but I just don't think it's got it on the battlefield.
I got 7 wounds too, so it's even worse than you thought.
It's been so long since I played one.
So sad.
It's a mythical creature.
What do you think about the additional limbs upgrade to make it really, really fast?
Pay more points to make it have a worse save? Nah.
Not a fan.
Yeah. No, not a fan. Not a fan for me. It's already too expensive. And making it more expensive, sure, it moves faster, but you can shoot it off more easily too. So, yeah, not a fan.
Okay, fair enough. So, moving on to Grim, what's your pick?
My pick isn't a terrible entry. Mine's the Giant. It's not that it's a bad entry. It's just that there are so many other things that are so much better. I mean, you can't not like a giant. It's a giant. It does great stuff. But when you compare it to Feldrak Elders or so many other things, okay, it's got a club. It can cast a spell. Maybe it's got a big spear. It's still a giant. I mean, giants aren't great. They're more of a fun choice to me. And that tells me that it's a really good book overall because I don't have any bad picks. I just have a less popular pick for my bad choice.
The giant's bad for me because of the army that it's in. Everything else is so tough. They've got good save. The giant's just a freebie for armies that wouldn't be able to get anything out of it for nothing. If there's like a handful of crossbowmen and your entire army's 2-up saves and toughness 6 Feldraks, maybe a blink a wound. But if you've got a giant, they'll just kill it in 2 rounds.
Yeah.
Every time I pay people like, yeah, my giant's going to come in like first round, blink, blink. Second round, blink, blink. Okay.
Yeah. They're just too easy to deal with. Unless you got 3 of them, and then you've got a football team, and then they're not that easy to deal with.
But if you're playing the giant in the ogres or the orcs, they've got other squishy targets that could want shooting.
Yeah,
so it makes a bit more sense. And you might want the giant to stop people from shooting at your meat bus or your savage orcs or feral orcs or anything.
Wrecking teams and all.
But with the warriors. They're like, well, we don't want to shoot any of your other stuff because it's not going to do any wounds. But we'll shoot this guy because he'll die. So, yeah, that's it for me.
Yep, fair.
But again, it's not a terrible choice. It's just not a popular choice for me.
Yeah, and it's a really, really thematic and cool choice too. I mean, the Tribal War Spear is so cool. I want to start a Wars of the Dark Gods army. I shouldn't. But I would definitely include a Tribal War Spear giant. I have the perfect model for it.
I like the Tribal War Spear giant gamey wise because you only need eight barbarians left alive to have 3 ranks still. If you put him on the big brother base, if you've got 8 lads left, you've got 4 ranks of dudes.
That's great.
I played that for a little while. It was fun.
Okay, so my bad pick, and again, I don't play this army, I have no idea, but I think it's gonna be the Chosen Chariot. I just don't see a purpose for it. It's slower than the normal Chariot. It's tankier, but the difference doesn't seem that great really. I think mostly it's a problem of them both having sort of the same role, that one of them will inevitably be worse than the other. But yeah,
I agree with you. I don't really like it either.
Love the concept, and I would probably include one of those too if I were to build my Wars of the Dark Gods army. But no, doesn't seem that good.
It's if you're willing to pay an extra 10 points, or 60 points, and turn it into a Sloth Chosen Chariot for +1 resilience, it can definitely be a big roadblock that people have a hard time getting through because it can dish out damage.
I suppose maybe one of my main bugbears with it is it used to be a lot better and cheaper. Maybe I'll just prejudice against it because it's not as good as it used to be. When it had the Mark of Pestilence and it was cheaper than it is now. In back 1.3.
Oh, yeah, you're going back a while there.
Go back a while.
Yeah.
Go back.
I'm happy to hear that the sloth option is the good one because that was definitely what I was going to build. The image of just some sloth warriors standing there, not bothering to do anything on the back of the chariot, just being pulled around, not caring where to go. I like it.
It can't move more than 10, and if it's charged, it's a charging chariot, so win-win. You don't need sloth, do you?
Yep. Yeah. I like the imagery of sloth being slightly pre-essence that they can see what's coming, so that's why they don't have to move much.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's just cool.
Yep, for sure. Okay, so that's all the bad picks.
And again, I wouldn't say that's a bad pick. I would just say it's not as good as some of the other picks.
Yeah, though isn't that the definition of a bad pick?
That's
yes,
yes,
put
I
it on
guess.
edge.
I suppose so.
But yeah, fair enough. It's
still a perfectly viable unit on the table, though.
Yeah.
At least it is for me in my playstyle.
I think that it's testimony to the really great balance of the Ninth Age. It's not perhaps a unit that is included in the tournament winning list every time, but you're not crippling yourself if you use it.
Yeah.
So moving on to the gem.
Back in the room.
So you can start us off with the gem, Wasteland.
Oh, just in time then, switching between devices. Just died.
Oh, okay.
The gem, probably something that most people would just consider to have been one of the strong choices, but I'd been put off from using it up until about a year ago. It's the Wretched Ones. I had to wean myself off them. I always consider them borderline broken now after having used them for a while. They're fantastic to take to a tournament if you intend to drink too much for the entire time, because they play half of your game for you. They just really surprised me. I didn't like them on paper for such a time, and I thought, no, I'll do the right thing. I'll take them. I'll try them out, and yeah, they've been the gem of the last year for me.
Okay, that's cool to hear.
I don't have models for those, so I have not played with them, but I've never heard anybody say anything bad about them, except when they just happen to roll the wrong numbers.
Yeah, they are.
They're a really solid choice.
Yeah.
Even if they're not going to kill anything, they're going to stay for like a round against nearly anything, and knowing that something will stay for a round against nearly anything, fantastic. When you've got it times 2. Even better. Reroll the random movement. Excellent. And when you get them into anything that doesn't have any saves, wow. Yeah. Discovery of the last year.
I think we mentioned it earlier, but something that affects how your opponent plays is always good. And I think seeing Wretched Ones on the table, it's always a bit terrifying because they are so random. You can't really be sure what they'll do, which is both and good for both sides, I suppose.
Yeah,
but it's
yeah. I would see them with the tape measure, like 18's as far as they can go, and you re-roll. How much dare I let you have?
Yeah.
That's always a good thing to see in the eyes of the opponent.
and they can't dance around them, and yeah, it's.
Nope.
They leave you a 16, and then you just roll an 18 anyway.
Yep. Skills.
Hate random movement when I'm against it. I love it when I'm using it, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm weaning myself off them because it needs to be done. I don't know how people can play the list with the double Forsaken one and the double Wretched Ones, because I'm not sure how much agency you really have in the game anymore. When you spent 75% of your points on stuff that moves a random distance, and you don't need to worry about setting up your charges or anything, and random attacks. Just roll a bucket of dice and see what the dice gods say.
That's exactly it. If you're just a guy who wants to show up and roll a lot of dice, this is the unit for you.
Yeah, yep. Boy, have I got a list for you, buddy. Yeah.
It's the adrenaline gamers pick, for sure. Timmy is happy.
Yes.
Okay. So, one gem down. What about you?
My gem is not just one battle shrine, but 2 battle shrines.
Ooh.
If you put these things together, an average caster costs, let's say, 500-ish points. I mean, you can go up to 900 points, but you're generally not going to get cheaper than that. 2 battle shrines is 520 points.
If you want to go master, that is.
Yeah, well, yeah. And who doesn't?
Yeah.
And then you can put something else on top of them if you want. But 2 battle shrines, let's say they're in the same combat together, that's 46 plus 4 grinding attacks. Channel 2 causes fear. I mean, plus regular attacks, plus spells, and their spells are good. That's a bargain. How can you go wrong with that? Ward save, Aegis save. I mean, it's everything in a bag of chips.
Yeah, I love the Shrine. I play the Shrine nearly every game. Been playing the Master on the Shrine though, which is a bit of a different thing.
That makes it a pricey option.
Well, it doesn't. It doesn't. I like to run the Master on the Shrine as my only character. I spent it costs 850 points, but then that character is done, and you can just spend the rest on beefy stuff. You're good to go. And the special shrines. I played an army swap with one of my friends the other day. He usually plays vampire counts, and we've been talking about swapping for a while. And he wrote a list, and I lent him my models to play against me. And he left his magic phase at just 2 shrines with the icon of the Inferno on and the bound spell banner.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a pretty decent magic phase. And as you say, 3 up save, 5 up ward, 5 wounds. They're hard to shift. Yeah, I agree with you. Good choice.
I think the thing that most people underestimate about them is really their fighting capacity. As you say, the grinding attacks that they have, it's not too shabby.
No. I mean, it's not great against anything but junky troops, but you get those into some junky troops like skeletons, zombies, elves,
Right, demons.
Yeah, they can do some work.
Yeah,
I killed an omen with the Shrine before. That was pretty good.
You killed a witch?
Killed the omen with the Shrine's grinding attacks before. That was pretty good.
That's nice.
It's not that unlikely to happen either.
I hope
you'll not die. He's got no armor, so. And it's
I hope you
attacks.
I hope you modeled an omen's head and hung it from your shrine from that point on.
Yeah, if I could be bothered to go back to models ever and I was that kind of guy, I definitely would. I'd have a slew of stuff to do every time I get a lucky dice roll like that. My models would be festooned.
Yep.
No, it's a great piece.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Great pick.
How about you, Matt?
Well, I think I'm gonna go with the single most contentious unit in the book, perhaps the Hellmaw. I think it definitely deserves a mention because it's such a unique piece. It completely changes the way the army plays.
It does.
So for those who don't know, it opens portals and closes portals, and it allows you to send units through those portals and shoot them across the board, which is very, very unique and very, very, very powerful.
I have a confession to make.
Yeah.
I use a Hellmaw in every one of my lists now. I buy 2 ominous gateways, and I have yet to lose a game.
Oh.
I remember when this was first proposed as an option, years ago. It was actually invented by Once Bitten 360. Hats off to him because he's an amazingly creative guy. And I thought, oh my God, teleporting chosen warriors or knights or into the backfields of anything is just game over. And they've balanced it pretty well. But my God, this is a powerful unit.
I think that they are really starting to hone in on the balance because it's a tricky piece to balance, but the ominous gateways is the key, really. So those have become really, really expensive, and that's as it should be.
I really don't like it. I've never used it, and I don't think I ever will.
Yeah.
I don't know. It departs too much from the core game mechanics for me.
Yeah, I can.
I've never played against it. I've never played against it either. But I feel like if you come up against somebody who doesn't really know what they're doing, sometimes it's bad enough as it is. And I've got this other thing that teleports stuff around. I'm like, what? What's the deal with this? And how does it work? I'd probably feel pretty bad when you're like, oh, I thought I was okay with it. You're like, no, mate.
You're not safe.
Wrath chosen the great weapons behind your general's bunk. Oh, no.
Oh, I feel dirty when I used it. I'm playing Kick the Baby and I know it, but it's fun.
I've only got like 3 friends left. I can't.
You can't take any chances.
No, I can't take any chances.
Yeah, fair enough. But it's the gem for me. It's such an interesting piece, and this is something that I think is important when it comes to game design, to really do things that stand out. Some people don't like it, and that's fine, but some people will love it, and I know a few people who really love it. So that's my pick.
That's fair, and that's actually a very good pick. It's very contentious, but it's very, very powerful.
Do you find it adds to your game time at all when you use it?
What's that?
Do you find that it adds to your game time? Deciding where to have to put the markers and units trying to guard the markers. That was a big fear of mine, that it might like add an extra 45 minutes of Hellmore phase onto the game.
It took me a long time to figure out how to use it properly, but now that I figured out my battle plan, it doesn't add any time at all. It adds to my opponent's.
Take more time though. Yeah.
It adds to my opponent's phase because he has a completely new dynamic to consider. But
Yeah.
One thing that I don't think people realize is people are so afraid of it that people quite often ask me when they look at my list, "Aren't you worried about your characters getting sniped?" Nope, they're always shooting at my Hellmaw.
Yep.
They never shoot at my characters. They're always shooting at my Hellmaw.
That's very worthwhile, really, to draw attention.
Yeah, but it's pricey. It's not a cheap option, but it's definitely worth it if you're going to invest in it. I mean, I had to design my entire army around it, so every single unit except one unit of dogs can run through those portals.
Okay, yeah, that's neat.
Yeah.
Okay, so
But it's like 4.5 Feldrax, so.
Yep. You measure everything in Feldrax.
Feldrax are almost immune to toxic hits. You'd be fine.
I know, but you could just have 4 more.
Okay.
That's true.
I think we should move on.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the last segment of the show, some miniatures. So we'll do like the background segment. We'll each take 2 or 3 picks, and we'll go in a circle until we run out, basically. So let's start with Grim this time.
My army is a legacy army that I bought from a friend when he got bored with the army. So almost all of my models are old Games Workshop Chaos Warrior models, but I got it unpainted, which was nice. But just the basic warrior, the GW. I don't know if they still produce them, but
I think
their basic warrior models have withstood the test of time for years, and they still look fantastic.
They've only just been replaced, I think, haven't they?
I think you can still get both of them. The new ones are in a start collecting box.
Right. Okay.
So, but if you want to buy warriors separately, it's still the old ones. But I reckon they won't be around for long.
No.
But it's a great pick. Those are some classic models. They look great, and they have done so for a long while. And I suppose that even though they might not be available from their site anymore, or shortly, they will still be around on eBay for a long time to come.
For sure.
Yeah, I think that's accurate.
So I guess we can mention the Games Workshop line in general. They really do have a lot of option for the Warriors of the Dark Gods player.
Yeah, if you're talking about old school Chaos Warriors, I mean, a good couple of 1,000 points of my army's probably older than I am. Since the dawn of time, Games Workshop have been making excellent Chaos Warrior models. Most of my is GW. I mean, I'm branching away from that now, and over the last few years, been buying bits from other places. But yeah, so much cool stuff. So much cool stuff to go back on that you can get through, as you say, eBay or Facebook trading groups and stuff. The well never goes dry. Everybody's got Chaos Warriors.
Yeah.
In the back of the cupboard somewhere is a box still waiting to get sold to me.
I think I have some of the armored orcs Chaos Warriors, the ones before these ones that we're talking about, but I don't actually have any of the really classic ones. Maybe need to get
So
some.
the Realm of Chaos Champions ones with the like the mutated heads and arms and stuff. I've got a whole unit full of them. Yeah, you use them as the chosen.
Oh, cool.
Back in the day.
So your first pick, Waste.
I'm going to take a pick on the hate box, the cool mini or not hate box that's been doing the rounds between myself and quite a lot of other people on the Warriors painting forums. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if anyone ever plays any of these cool mini or not games, or whether they just like tack a game onto a box full of really nice models that people scavenge for whatever game system they're playing. But I got the full loaded out Kickstarter that someone had bought off eBay of that, and there's so many cool models in there. I've used there's like a whole bunch of slightly bigger than ogre guys that I've used as the Doomlord and the Forsworn. Tons of infantry models in there. Fusions of the Fallen and the Warriors and Barbarians. I don't think I'll even ever get through them all. There's so much stuff in that box. I think it's like about 170 quid, and there's probably nearly as many models as it costs pounds in there, and some of them big ass models you'd pay like 20 or 30 quid for on their own. So yeah, if you want to start a Warriors army and you like the idea of having some exiled elements, find yourself a box of that on eBay, because really nice stuff.
I think they are still possible to get through Kickstarter. I'm not sure about that though.
Oh no, actually, I think you're right. I think they've re-released a new re-milking of the old cow that they're wheeling back out. They didn't sell it for a while, but now there's like a Kickstarter. Will Cool Mini or not manage to make enough money to sell this pre-order on Kickstarter?
Yeah,
kind of thing.
I didn't hear about that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Not sure about it, so don't take my word for it. But I seem to recall having heard something about that. But yeah, it's a good pick. I've seen some of their models. One of the mounted ogre type characters, like on a huge Karkadan.
Oh, the 8 behemoth. I've got him for the behemoth.
Yeah, I think that's the right size for him, and he looked really cool in person. So great pick. Those are some awesome models. So for my own first pick, I think I'm gonna go with Windmaster miniatures. They don't have a huge selection of Warriors of the Dark Gods miniatures, but they do have a range of barbarians and something called Morg. And Windmaster, they do, I think it's resin models, and they are really quite cheap. And they have some cheap character options basically for both warriors, wizards, and a lot of barbarians. They have one warrior type model on a perfect model for a Karkadan, so it's a rhino. And I mean, I don't think it's the best quality. It's not the best sculpts, but it's really cheap and a good place to start, I think, if you want some characters for your army. Or if you're on a tight budget. So that's my pick.
I'll have to check them out. I haven't seen them myself, but I'll give them a look.
Yeah, I'll include a link to them in the description of the video whenever that comes up. We'll see. So, a second pick, Grim.
This is probably my weak area because in the box in my garage, I had so many Warriors of the Dark Gods army that I could use out of my old Chaos Warriors army that I hadn't bought new models for this army in years. I haven't bought hardly any models in the last few years. I've just been spending my time painting what I've already got, which I know is kind of sacrilegious, but
you definitely don't understand this hobby. The goal is to buy as
No,
many models
no.
as you can, and then never paint them.
Well, I was I'm older and wiser now. Back when I was a younger, more handsome man, that was the plan. But no, these days I just spend my time modeling, so I'm not up on the new lines. I have all the models that I need. I've looked at models actually for an Asklander's army, and I haven't found any that quite hit the niche that I'm looking for. So if you guys have recommendations for good barbarian models or good barbarian horseman models, I'd love to hear the things you guys think are looking good. But as far as Wars of the Dark Gods, I mean, I just haven't looked in a few years on those. I like what I've got. The Chaos Warrior model was the original reason why I like the army, which is why it was my first pick. But yeah, I don't have much to contribute otherwise than that.
Okay, yeah, fair.
Fair.
I think Blonde Bear is the guy to ask about Ostlanders. He's sure to have some tips for you there about models.
If you want infantry, I've browsed a few of the Asklander threads. There seems to be a lot of infantry, but as you said, horsemen. I think the horseman is something that's a bit thin on the ground. There's not too many miniatures coming out with decent horsemen. With the infantry, there's Gripping Beast and Shield Maiden Swans and stuff. There's loads of cool stuff in some of the Ascalon threads for them, but the horseman-wise, not so much.
Yeah, I don't want the naked barbarian who's running around in the north. That just doesn't work for me.
I think
Yeah, fair enough.
Fireforge did a Kickstarter recently about some Byzantine barbarian models, and those were all mounted, I think, or most of them. So you could.
Yeah. Cataphracts and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think it's more suited for the Makar, but
yeah,
I mean,
rather than Ascalander.
With the, I think they can easily be used in any Warriors of the Dark Gods army.
Okay.
I don't think I've ever seen anyone using the cavalry in Ascalander.
No, I don't think so either.
Not even once.
You'd be the first.
Well, it's a future project. I've got, how many projects do we all have in our brains?
Yeah, that's for sure.
Right.
But kind of like a giant, how can you not like a Viking?
Yeah, I mean the Asklanders is or Osklander, as I think it's pronounced, is something that I too would maybe one day venture into. I mean, they have a tribal war spear, so
That's true.
that's all I ask for.
And the blocks that you can put in are better than the Dark God blocks.
Yeah, that's true. So maybe that's the one I should aim for.
I played against the cool Ascalander army once where he had three blocks with giants in. It just looked ace, just giant block, giant in a block, giant in a block.
That's nice. Okay, so how about the second pick from your waist?
I'd have to pick miniatures. Resin Company from England. Some really, really lovely sculpts. Various different factions. They do their own game called Darklands, I think.
Yeah, I never
never
heard anything about that, really. They do love the miniatures.
You've probably heard of the models.
Yeah, the models are great.
Much like Cool Mini or Not board games, I imagine a game that virtually never gets played. Sells shitloads of really nice models.
Yeah.
Back and being fantastic. But yeah, for monsters, the amount of monsters they've got in their various different ranges, it's just amazing. I could just buy them all. The prices are pretty high, but so much of the time they've got like half price, buy one get free, 30% off stuff going on to tempt you in at decent prices. Yeah, I've ended up with quite a few models from them. Got my Feldrak Elder, Feldrak Ancestor. Picked up some great weapon dudes from them as well, and the Dragon Men for Heralds and Feldraks. so many different models that you could buy from them to fit into the warriors or into the Asklanders, beast herds, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. I haven't actually got any of their miniatures. I really should remedy that, but they are. I've seen them, some of them in person, and they are an amazing company.
Oh yeah, I got the Sacred ones from them as well. Yeah.
I don't care.
More than I thought.
I don't care much for their website though. It's really difficult to navigate. But
I didn't like that to start with. But I find it quite funny now. I understand.
Yeah, I guess
It's like a secret in joke that.
Once you get
initiated
used to the faction names and things like that, it gets.
Once you've learned how to
easier.
speak Welsh, you're away.
So that's the key.
But I think all the factions in their Darklands game are like the Celtic and Gaelic races and stuff. All the names for all their units and all their factions are either in Welsh or like Old Irish and stuff. So
that's sounds about right.
Confusing.
Yeah, but it's a good pick. It was actually one of my picks too, particularly for Feldrax. I've seen those models on the forums so many times for Feldrax. So they are very popular.
I've got them sat in a box when I finish these Saurians. When I finish the Saurians, I'm allowed to build the Feldrax man.
Ooh.
But not until, because then I'll never get finished.
So great pick. My last pick is gonna be Nightmare Games. I don't think these are very well known, but it's a company. They do some very old school type of sculpting and metal miniatures, and they have a range called Pantheon of Chaos, where they have a lot of cool character models. So they have barbarians and warriors, a pretty small Feldrak dude. I don't really know what you use him as, because it's just the one guy. But if you go with a great range of different miniatures, he can definitely fit in as a Feldrak in a unit. And they also have quite a lot of different species of the warrior miniatures. So if you want to lean into the background of all kinds of species being able to take the pact, then you can find some dwarf miniatures here, and I think also some elf miniatures in the heavy plate armor. So
we've got some cool orcs as well. We've got quite a big orc line in Nightmare thing, I think.
Yeah,
some of the orcs are pretty heavily armored. You could use them as orc warriors.
Yeah, that's true.
That's the dark gods.
That's very true. So that's my second pick. And yeah, I think that's the last pick too then, which should bring us to the end of the show. So, do we have any closing thoughts that we wanna voice? Some dog apparently had. That's nice timing.
If you could just press stop, then it'd have been perfect.
Yeah, that moment has passed, unfortunately.
Other than that, I mean, thanks for having me on. It's been fun chatting with you guys. I don't usually do this kind of thing, as I say, so hopefully I'll come across all right. But yeah, nice to chat through the book. Nice that you made me read back through the fluff so I can remember a bit more of it. I'll revisit that again, definitely, and
yeah,
maybe read Circling the Abyss again, see if I can remember any of that when I go back through it the second time.
I should maybe do a show about the Circling the Abyss specifically. But before we close out, also we should mention how our painting or building has come along. So how have you been doing? Let's start with Grim.
I still have a lot more Hobgoblin vassal infantries to put together.
They are legion, I suppose.
They are. I just love the little guy so much, so I'm willing to put some effort into them, and I've got so many to go.
Yep.
But hey, I can make them just about anything because they're vassals now, so
yep.
That's okay. They'll eventually get formed. They've actually earned the right to be painted. They've been so useful. You don't get painted in my army unless you've earned it, and they've earned it.
That's harsh.
You don't get played in mine unless you get painted, so they need to get painted.
Different takes. Okay, how have you been doing Waste?
Tonight, well, I've based up 5 skinks, painted the bases on 6 Saurus Warriors, painted a bit on the Veteran's Raptor, started painting the Veteran. It's been pretty productive, actually. How long have we been on? About an hour or so?
I think we're closing up on 2 hours.
Alright, fair enough. Well, still, pretty decent 2 hours work for me.
Yep. Yeah,
but just powering through the lizards, gotta get them finished.
Nice. For myself, I've right about finished one of the guys. He's gonna get a varnish now and then some metal paint. I've started on a second guy, so been pretty productive for myself. But
looks great, man.
Yeah,
the
thanks.
First one's quality. You painted that the entirety of that while we've been talking?
Yeah, I just had the rust and the base were painted beforehand, but all the rest is.
It'd take me all day to paint it to a much
work.
lower standard. Sweet.
I'm really quite happy with it.
I hate it a little bit more. Yeah, it looks really cool.
So yeah, okay.
Thanks again for having me on.
Yeah, no problem. I'm happy to have you back on. Thank you both for coming on. I think it's been great.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. I'll do it again.
Yeah, I'm sure that can be arranged. So there's always another episode to do. So thank you again both for coming on, and I want to thank all the listeners out there. Please put in a comment, especially if you're painting something while listening to this. I'd like to know what you've been working on as well. But yeah, that's all from us. So cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers.